It has really solid defenses and special defenses. Also, it's not fully evolved Pokemon, which means that Eviolite is going to boost those defenses even further, which is terrifying to think about. Now, it really doesn't have much offensively, speed-wise, or anything else. This is actually like the perfect view of a tank. If this Pokemon says, I don't need any offenses, I don't need no speed, just give me my defenses, let me not take damage ever, and we'll be good to go. Against typing, it's a pure ghost type Pokemon. We just saw this with Bayonetta, and it's pretty much the same thing. They don't have to worry about ghost dark types, don't have to worry about normal fighting, bug, or poison too much. So, in Pokemon Showdown, we're going to see that Dusclops is one of the most brutal tanks imaginable. The Eviolite. If older species can evolve, defense and special defense are 1.5 times, which is already really ridiculous. So then I was thinking we max out the hit points because they're so low, and then we just split it up between defense and special defense, and then give it a special defense nature. Why, you may ask? Well, Will-O-Wisp. It's going to burn the target, which cuts their attack in half, and now we have a pretty special defensive bulk Pokemon, and now Pokemon should not go take anything from physical damage as well, and mostly you can kind of mess with this how you please. Since Ghost and Dark are generally going to be more special based, or like more commonly encountered in special, you can really just put a higher care into your special defense, and then once you get that burn off, you're not worrying about taking too much damage from there anyway. Now this Dusclops is very reminiscent of the Battle Tower Dusclops. That pretty much it sits there, it uses Confuse Ray and Double Team until it has max evasion, you're hitting yourself. It's very everyone's toxic. I prefer Will-O-Wisp from a competitive aspect because it does have that attack drop, and then rest. And by this point you can't do anything to him. You're just going to Will-O-Wisp and then rest, and now the opponent's going to get burned down over time. Like this Pokemon's the epitome of stall. Very, very few things can 1 or even 2 hit KO this Pokemon, and if they're trying to set up, you're getting set up as well with Double Team. If they hit themselves in confusion with that Will-O-Wisp burn, they're not going to last too long. Now naturally this can be taunted or stalled out, but if your opponent doesn't have any ways of handling it, it's just over for your opponent right there. Also Dusclops works really well in Trick Room. That this can work out for singles or doubles, mostly doubles, because now you're setting up Trick Room for your ally. This Pokemon is not going to take, is very hard to 1 hit KO on that first turn, so you're most likely getting that Trick Room set up. And now you have that speed priority, that by running a Sassy Nature, your speed is so low, you're probably going to be one of the first Pokemon to move that turn. Nightshade is going to do a set amount of damage, which is pretty nice. You also have Taunt Will-O-Wisp. Burn your opponents, set up Taunt, and now in doubles, you either have to deal with this tanky threat that will never go away, or you also have to deal with the other Pokemon that's in Trick Room. A lot of people like running Mega Mawile, a lot of really slow, beefy, hard-hitting Pokemon in Trick Room, means you have to pay attention to something, or you're just going to get completely destroyed by it. And that's just how Dusclops works. Also, a couple other moves, this isn't a moveset in itself, but it does have Pain Split, which means you can anticipate if you're 2-hit, 3-hit KO, you set up your Confuse Ray, you set up your Double Team, you set up any kind of thing that you want to set up, and then on that second or third hit, you're thinking you might be really low on hit points, use Pain Split, cut your opponent's attack, or cut your opponent's hit points almost in half right there, or however much the difference is, and then Pain Split is going to give you a lot of health back. This is where having a really low hit points works in your favor. It takes the average. You're going to be getting a lot of health back, and they're going to be losing a lot of health from it. In Trick Room, Destiny Bond is very viable, that instead of Nightshade, Taunt, or Will-O-Wisp, or whatever, that they might not expect the speedy Destiny Bond coming in their face once you've set up a bit and you're at low health, which is also really nice. Then we have Haze and Snatch. Snatch is going to be a nice little supportive steal, and then Haze is going to make it to where if you're not stat changing or you're not doing anything like that, work out really well to just shut down your opponent's setup. And it's not going to be good for the double team because then it's just limiting yours. But in doubles, if you feel that Pokemon's going to try to be setting up, it could be a nice little trick to have. Or in singles, if you just want to have this Pokemon that's anti-setup, it can set up Haze, it can throw out a taunt, and they can really just kind of burn and confuse threats from there. It can be a really nice Pokemon to force switches out on. Now, since we've been talking about Dusclops, what about Dusknoir? Well, Dusknoir doesn't do much because when you have that Eviolite, it's just too tanky, and the stat boost really isn't there. That it gets slightly more defense and slightly more hit points and some more offense. So people try to run it, just to be like bulk hit points and then offensive stability and just trying to get some really strong hits from there. That Trick Room works really nice, and then you have coverage. That you can get all the elemental punches. So you have like Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, get access to Earthquake, and Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch is really nice because the move does not check accuracy, so it technically works well against the Dusclops set to a degree. And then also you just have some other moves and stuff like that. So you're going to be more of a physical fighter instead of a status disruptor. And you can get some really nice work out of it. That Pain Split, Trick Room, and then 2 coverage moves does work out pretty well for Dusknoir, and it does give you a little bit of sustain and a little bit of coverage and damage overall. So it's not bad. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and that's how you use Dusknoir and Dusclops, mostly Dusclops. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Rolls here, and this is how to use Salamence. Salamence, that pseudo-legendary Pokemon, huge stats, just a lot of craziness overall. 100 speed, starting to get into that competitive realm, not the fastest, but it can make work of it. 110 special attack. 110 special attack and 100 speed is already like higher than a lot of Pokemon we've already seen. Then also has 135 attack, 95 on the base hit points. All defenses aren't insane, they're not super frail, so Salamence, even on invested defense, is a 2-hit KO Pokemon really reliably. So we're just looking at a really somewhat bulky Pokemon with good offensive stats, and it can just round out really well and be a fairly strong Pokemon. Then we look at typing, Dragon Flying. As long as it doesn't get too cold outside, it doesn't start snowing, we don't have any icy weather on the way, Salamence is going to do alright. It is weak against Rock and Dragon as well, but overall we're going to have some decent durability, strong, like not a lot of neutral hits, and just some main weaknesses to consider. But it's Pokemon. Your opponent's trying to hit you super effective already, so if you can get around it, you're going to be okay. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, Salamence is weird because there's so many different ways of running it that this is going to be more of a guide for Salamence. That's not the absolute final definition of this is exactly how you run Salamence. Which is kind of true of most of my guides, but just going to drive that point home on this one most because a lot of people say a lot of different things about the most optimal Salamence. These are more or less my 2 cents about it. That my idea of the most optimized Salamence is going to be from Moxie with a mixed special kind of shenanigans setup. That you invest enough in your special attacks where Draco Meteor is going to hit hard against most Pokemon. If you have Stealth Rock set up, Draco Meteor can have a strong neutral KO potential. If you're bringing in on a lower Pokemon, that the Pokemon has around half health, Draco Meteor is going to be a fairly reliable, well 90% reliable, way to knock out your opponent. Life Orb is going to boost a lot of damage. That I was thinking running Naive Nature, that we have a lot of outspeeds. And then you go to that, Moxie is going to boost your attack. And then you have Life Orb, so I mean you transition physical. Dragonflaw, whatever neutral, Earthquake, and Rock Slide, whatever super, and then you can snowball it from there. As long as you don't get outsped. Like the only weakness here is getting outsped. Moxie's going to keep rocking, and your damage potential just keeps going up. Then Draco Meteor, boom, just knock out that opponent right there, +1 on the attack. Dragonflaw or hit him super effective or like coverage out with that. That could be another KO. Even then, remember, Salamence has good bulk without any investment. Could be a 2-hit KO Pokemon as long as they don't bring anything that outright supers you. They don't have any of those Pokemon left. They're in trouble because then you pick them off with Salamence. Now you're +2 with Moxie, and you can just kind of clean sweep from there. Even then, Salamence could be a good revenge Pokemon, potentially converting another KO, if not high damage from there, pretty reliably. So I think it's alright. Get Sticky Web set up on it, it's going to be extra strong. So that's what we're looking at with this set. Now you can also Scarf Moxie Salamence, but I think that has its own weaknesses behind it. That I was thinking if you're going to run any kind of Scarf Salamence, it's mostly going to be doubles, and even then, Salamence shouldn't be your hard sweeper from there. That Choice Scarf takes away a lot of damage, and that unless you're like what you're going to see mostly is a special attack Salamence. That with that Draco Meteor, with that Flamethrower, with that Dragon Pulse, there's still a good amount of damage. You can go into that Modest Nature because your Scarf is making you so fast, and that's really all it's about. That in doubles, secondary sweeper, come in Draco Meteor, maybe get the switch out, maybe just try to hit as much damage as possible, and have another stronger Pokemon or Mega Pokemon clean it up from there. Then Salamence can shine. Other than that, I just don't see the merits in Choice Scarf Salamence because even then, say you are running Moxie, it's going to be hard to kind of scout out that first KO unless you can guarantee that you're going to get that revenge pickup. If you can guarantee the revenge pickup, there's some good potential because now your attack is getting boosted, but you do become predictable. That it's like, oh, this Pokemon outsped me, of course it's going to be Scarf, and then you don't have too much coverage from there. You're essentially going to be Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Dragon Claw, or almost any Salamence, and Rock Slide can be walled out. Earthquake and Dragon Claw have immunities, so your momentum can kind of get shut down really quick. And then if you come in the late game and you can't pick off a fresh Pokemon with high hit points, you're very susceptible. So that's why it's like all the guides are weird. A lot of people praise Choice Scarf Salamence. I don't think so. I think it's all about that Life Orb mixed transitioning where you get the most out of Salamence. And even then, Mega Salamence might be like super bustedly overpowered in a lot of people's eyes, but you can kind of do that with regular Salamence. That it's going to be harder to set up. That Mega Salamence has a lot of reliability in setting up. Regular Salamence can do it too. It only has 10 less attack than Mega Salamence, 145 to 135, and the speed is kind of getting covered up by the Dragon Dancing anyways. Really, the only thing that makes Mega Salamence so strong is that defense boost. That with the defense boost, it just makes it harder to knock out with physical ice attacks or Rock Slide or any kind of physical attack. So it makes your Dragon Dance setup more reliable. And then there also is Aerial. Aerial makes it where Mega Salamence gets like +1, have a lot of damage. Regular Salamence just takes +2. With this though, you can still do it. You can still go for that Dragon Dance. And I was thinking with the hit point investment with the Citrus Berry, now you're a 3-hit KO Pokemon, potentially 4-hit KO Pokemon. Your opponent has to switch out because they see you setting up Dragon Dance. They don't have a lot of raw damage. With this setup, you might be able to survive that hit, get that Dragon Dance, survive another hit, get the Dragon Dance, and now you're kind of on Mega Salamance's level. Not quite. You still have a lot of speed, not many things will be able to catch you, and then you just have a lot of damage, so you coverage out again. Dragon Dance, Rock Slide, Earthquake. There are some other moves that you can put in. Fire Fang is going to help against specifically Ferrothorn, Scizor. But than that, it's not going to be too much. That you're really going to have to hit super effective hits, or just throughout the Dragon Claw. Fire Fang hitting super effective is going to be slightly stronger than just a neutral Dragon Claw, so it kind of doesn't really pan out too much. Same with Crunch. Crunch you can run, but it's only going to be for super effective hits, and same with Rock Slide, only super effective hits. So on that, you have Earthquake, good coverage, bread and butter. But I was thinking, you don't see Dragon Dance Salamence too often, and it still has that same ridiculous potential as Mega Salamence, just a little less durable, so you have to bring it on opponent's set of Pokemon or opponent's stall Pokemon. Then you break them down, you go and win, happy days. So if you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys just got to think about Salamence a lot, because Salamence is very strong, has a lot of crazy diversity, and if you're not running a Mega, you're okay. I already did a Mega guide, so you can check that out as well. If you guys enjoyed the video, I hope you all have a nice day. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Brawlers here in the Stadium's Mean Shao. Now you might have noticed in the title screen that we had OP with a question mark. So this video is mostly going to be breaking down the merits of if Mean Shao is actually a really strong Pokemon or not. So when we break it down, it's going to have 125 on the attack, 95 on the special attack, that doesn't really matter much, and 105 on the speed. Now defenses and hit points are so low, we only have two stats to look at. That's going to be the speed, and that's going to be the attack, which are alright. So 105 speed, I've seen it as a good stat and a bad stat at the same time. 105 speed, you're going to outspeed the massive amount of 100 base speed Pokemon, also 101, 102 base speed Pokemon as well, but you're still going to not be in a very comfortable sweeping range, especially with these incredibly hyper frail defenses. You're the ultimate glass cannon, you need to be faster. So if a Pokemon outspeeds you, it's going to be very, very bad. And you just have a very high chance of being neutrally one-hit KO'd by a lot of different moves. That could be problematic. Look at typing, it's a pure fighting type. None of this really matters. Like the resistance is kind of, but all you have to do is bunch the weaknesses and the neutral hits in the same category, because you're definitely not surviving any flying psychic or fairy type attacks unless you have a focus sash or something like that. But even neutral hits, you see a strong neutral hit, I mean, it's going to be over for you anyways because you have no survivability whatsoever. You know what? I wouldn't even be surprised if there's like some kind of statistic where Choice Banded Megahorn from some kind of random Pokemon knocks out Mean Shao even as a resisted hit. It's that frail of a Pokemon. However, hopping into Pokemon Showdown, we see a lot of diversity from the Mean Shao and a lot of really, really good things going for it. So it's a 125 attack Pokemon that gets high jump kick, so 130 base power, and Reckless. Pokemon's attacks with recoil crash damage, high jump kick counts as crash, has 20% more power, not including struggle. So we're going to be doing a stab move with 125 attack that has 130 base power that also gets another 20%. That's really, really good. And then we can kind of combo into things really well. That we are so frail that a gentle breeze is going to knock us out. So we use focus at 5 and now get access to the acrobatics. Acrobatics is going to jump up in power, we get Stone Edge, which is high damage, and we even have knockoff or whatever else we want to run because we do get a good amount of coverage overall that we can add the poison jab to kind of hit the fairy types that threaten us. I feel knockoff isn't that great unless you're only looking for like that situation like you can't KO things, so you get a nice chunk of damage and then a little bit of utility from removing the item. That's kind of all there is to knockoff. But if you're looking for the sweep, might as well include the coverage of a poison jab. So when it comes to Mean Shao, speed is kind of it. You need to go jolly, you need to outspeed everything you can. Rest is attack, and then you just kind of hope for one hit KOs. Now here's where we kind of have to question if Mean Shao's OP or not. High jump kick, even with all of this ridiculous damage, not always going to find neutral one hit KOs, and that could be a big problem. Pokemon like Garchomp. Garchomp, even if it's an offensive Garchomp, say like some kind of Life Orb Garchomp, you're not going to one hit KO with that high jump kick. That's not good because then you just eat an Earthquake and it's over. So that's kind of what we're talking about. Now a lot of other Pokemon, we find the base Pokemon that we're always talking about. If they have 80s in the hit points, 80s in defenses, that high jump kick is looking for neutral KOs. So depending on what you're using Mean Shao for, going to be pretty nice, but at the same time, it's not going to be a good Pokemon for every situation. So sweeping isn't super universal. That's just something to note. Also, if you get outsped, it's over anyways. But there's so much damage potential coming from this Pokemon. Now we can also remedy that with a Choice Scarf. So when we're running the Choice Scarf, it is going to give us more damage in a weird way because we run the Adamant Nature. So we don't have to worry about our speed because we're going well over 450 speed. So we're going to outspeed pretty much everything, and then we just have the attack and we're going to be good to go. So we're getting more damage on the set. However, doesn't really mean too much. So say we have like pure tank Garchomp, we're barely going to 2-hit KO it, and even if we have like an offensive Garchomp, so Garchomp with no hit point and no defensive investment, what's that going to do? Still not 1-hit KOing, and the Earthquake is going to be absurd amounts of damage. So again, if this is Adamant, it just has to be Adamant, and it's doing a very high amount. And if it's Life Orb, definitely knocking us out with a neutral Earthquake. So we're boosting the right amount of damage. It's not going to look good for us. And if they're using Outrage, then it even takes less for them to sweep us. So they survive the hit, then they can do whatever they want back to us, and that's going to be a problem for Mean Shao because it's so frail. That's going to be how Choice Scarf works. Pretty much the same idea, but the Focus Sash does give us that second chance. Now Garchomp is going to be the exception because it also has the recoil whenever we make contact on it. So that's going to be a problem because it breaks our Focus Sash. So really there's no win-win in some situations. However, we do still put out really high amounts of damage, and we can carry that over for the Focus Sash or the Scarf or whatever we want. And the Focus Sash does give us kind of that one free break, but if we get past that, then we're still in trouble. Or if the Sash does get broken. Now another huge problem about Mean Shao, it's super Will-O-Wisp bait. That if they have a Prankster Pokemon with Will-O-Wisp, you're going to have a bad time. If they have any kind of Will-O-Wisp, tanky Pokemon, Sabachi hit throws out the Will-O-Wisp. Now Mean Shao is absolutely worthless, and then you just kind of lose a Pokemon for free because now it gets super easily knocked out, doesn't throw enough damage, and it's going to be okay. So let's go and talk about some other damage options on the Mean Shao. I've seen Drain Punch on Mean Shao. Terrible, terrible, terrible move. I have no idea why people put this on it. It's so incredibly rare that you'll do enough to like 2-hit KO with the Drain Punch, but then barely survive in like some kind of weird damage roll. That you're either getting one shot or you're not in a lot of situations. And Drain Punch isn't going to pull you into like a 3-hit KO range or something like that. If you're 2-hit KO, you're a 2-hit KO when it comes to Mean Shao. Now people do say they don't run high jump kick because of the risk for crash. Now crash is a really bad thing if you get outplayed on like a protect or something, or if they switch into a ghost type Pokemon. Jump kick does have that recoil as well, but the accuracy is a little better. So if you want a 5% less chance of missing for a lot less damage, and that's kind of what you can do for jump kick. But then there's Brick Break. So if you don't like jump kick, you don't like high jump kick, but you want to run Drain Punch, just use Brick Break instead. Same amount of damage. It's going to not really matter if you're healing or not when it comes to the Mean Shao. Brick Break is going to be nice if they have Light Screen Reflect. I know it's low odds, but it's still better seeing a Light Screen Reflect than becoming a Pokemon that's going to survive because of Drain Punch. That's just kind of how Mean Shao works. So so Brick Break I think is a better option. Now there is Inner Focus, but that's mostly going to be double battles, and speaking of double battles, Mean Xiao is a very interesting double battle Pokemon. So you outspeed Kangaskhan, and you one-shot it with a high jump kick. You also get access to Fake Out, so even if you have the Inner Focus, this is why it's so crucial. You can try to predict Fake Out, so you can try to like Fake Out your opponent as well. That if you know they're going to Fake Out your ally, then you can still kind of convert damage with something else. Like Kangaskhan is just going to be in a very bad position against Mean Xiao, because Kangaskhan tries to Fake it out. You're going to take a lot of damage, but Inner Focus is going to make it to where you just turn around the damage and one-shot the Kangaskhan with something like a high jump kick. And then you can also play the Fake Out game. You can have your ally Pokemon be some kind of mega or super powerful sweeper, and then you Fake Out and then trade and do damage and things like that happen. And then even the Wide Guard. So Wide Guard, this also works for like Earthquake, Rock Slide, Explosion, Heat Wave. A lot of moves are really going to be stopped by the Wide Guard in double battles, and it's really strong on Mean Xiao. And you can even run this set and then like a high jump kick. So you're going to be the ultimate support Pokemon that can threaten damage at any time. With this, always going to be that jolly nature, always going to be that speed nature. There's no point trying to put hit points in this Pokemon defensive investment whatsoever. So you're always going to have that pressure on Kangaskhan. You're going to have that pressure on anything that you can go and beat up neutrally. But then at the same time, there is the threat of Cresselia. There's tanky ghost type Pokemon, stuff like that. So what you can do is you can give up the Quick Guard or something like that, depending on which guard you need, because some teams you don't want that Talonflame hitting you, don't want that priority beating you down. So Quick Guard is necessary. But if you don't need Quick Guard, you don't worry about Wide Guard, then you can kind of swap it out and put in the knockoff. So knockoff, you're not looking to KO, you're just trying to remove leftovers off of a Pokemon, so be super tanky. You're trying to get a lot of damage, and the idea is you just cover with that. You make that one really cool Wide Guard or high jump kick play, you knock off, and then you get fainted. Like Mean Xiao isn't going to directly shine, but it's going to set up your battle for quite the victory, and that's kind of all there is to it. And then there's Life Orb Mean Xiao. So Mean Xiao is going to be riskier than the Focus Sash and the Choice Scarf, but it's going to be much more damage. You run the Jolly Nature, so again, anything that outspeeds you is going to absolutely destroy you. But if you outspeed everything, and this is where you use it as a late game Pokemon. Now this is where Mean Xiao can truly shine as a very OP Pokemon. You get rid of the threats to outspeed it. You get rid of anything that can survive. Now with the Life Orb on top of that high jump kick, it really changes the game up. So say we have Garchomp and then now we just throw in the Life Orb on top of this. That means that now we're going to actually find those KOs onto fully offensive Garchomp. Now tanks and stuff like that will still be a problem for us, but it does change those damage thresholds, so we just can't get outspeed at any cost. So that means we have to dedicate our team to removing the fastest Pokemon on the opponent's side of the field, and then we just use high jump kick, knock off, poison jab, Fake Out, whatever we need to kind of decide the battle. Now the cool thing about Fake Out is it lets you combo. You Fake Out into a knockoff, or you Fake Out into a super effective poison jab. That could be a KO right there if you aren't going to be hitting with that high jump kick. There are going to be those times where this is better than Scarf, and Scarf is better than that, and Focus Sash is better than all of them. It's just like this weird triangle that do you need outspeeds, do you need that second chance, or do you just need to blow up everything once you know that their sweepers have been removed. That's how you use Mean Xiao, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you for watching.
Want to add some spice to your life? Our Spicy Bookish coloring book is just what you need. This unique coloring book is filled with intricate designs and sassy quotes. Perfect for unleashing your creativity and expressing your inner fire. Whether you're a seasoned color
Welcome back, Wolfpack. For listeners, this is how to use Cradily. Cradily has some great tank stats. I honestly feel that's a bit underrated, because 86 on hit points, while not being the most incredible tank stats, really works out on Cradily because you have 97 defense and 107 special defense. This Pokemon is going to sponge damage incredibly well, and it has some decent offensive potential from there. That also, when we look at Typing Grass Rock, could be better. You do have 4 weaknesses, so that is something you have to worry about. Fighting Bug, Steel, and Ice. Some of those are pretty common, like Steel and Ice, and they can still be very rough. Also, you only have resistances to Normal and Electric, which is kind of hard because you can't really use Cradily to switch in and absorb hits and then set up. You're going to have to bring it in as a revenge Pokemon or something like that. Just plant its roots, maybe even use it as a lead, and then try to have it run away with the battle from there. Hopping in Pokemon Showdown, I'm going to make a really quick note of Armaldo and Claydol. Claydol and Armaldo, I already reviewed them like within the last 3 or 4 months, so I don't want to make another video again. Not much has changed about the strategies, it's effectively going to be the same. So if you need these strategies and you're anticipating them, I've already done a video, you'll find links in the description, and I'm adding them to the how to use playlist. So with that out of the way, we're just going to hop over to Cradily. That gets Stockpile. I know for some reason you guys facepalm whenever you see Stockpile. It is one of the strongest moves in the game because it boosts both defenses, and when put on a tanky Pokemon like Cradily, it lets you set up hard. Sure, makes you a taunt bait, but not every team has taunt. Not every Pokemon's going to have the option. If you actually play properly, you remove the taunt Pokemon, then Cradily is free to set up, or whatever Pokemon that you're using to set up is going to have a field day. And also looking at Cradyle's stats, you know, we're going to get some incredible boost off Stockpile, and it also gets Suction Cups. Pokemon cannot be forced to switch out, so things like Roar and Whirlwind, that's a wasted turn, and that's going to be free setup if they try to move you out through that direction, and it's still pretty solid. Also, Cradily gets Recover, so you don't have to do any Chesto, Resto, Stockpile shenanigans. It has its own built-in sustain. That like running it with Citrus Berry because you get that burst health. Use Stockpile, fall below half, Citrus Berry pushes you around like 60 to 75% or something like that. Then you just Stockpile again, start recovering, and then you can set up. Infestation Toxic is a scary combo. Traps the opponent for 45 turns, and then you Toxic them. They can't switch out, and they just get burned down, and eventually they become nothing, and they get KO'd in, I think, 4 turns from just the damage over time on this. Cradily starts taking almost no damage with Stockpile boost. Now you can run it, you know, kind of mix that you can go for either a more defensive or just whatever you feel that your team needs, or whatever your threats, whatever threatens you the most. That you can go for that higher defense while just making sure you have that special defense nature. With this, you're actually going to want to run Calm because Infestation is technically a special move, so you'll get a couple more points of damage on that. But careful won't punish you too much, honestly. So with this, you're going to try to use that 107 special defense, get the most with Calm nature, max out defense, and you're good to go from there. Looking at some other things, you can run Barrier as well. That Barrier is going to make you more weak physically, but if you set up against a special Pokemon, like you know, you bring Cradily in, use Barrier once, and then you can just recover out any of their special damage. As long as you're not hitting you with Ice type attacks or Bug type attacks, you're going to be doing really well, and it can be a more interesting setup. That with Barrier, you're not capped. That Stockpile caps you at 3 uses. Barrier, you can use it twice. You're already higher in defenses than Stockpile, but your special defense doesn't want to go up anymore. So it's kind of playing to the physical oriented meta. That if you know there's going to be more physical Pokemon on the opponent's team, you can just kind of wall out the special how you can, and then just use Barrier to really set up hard. From there, Cradily also has Swords Dance option and Rock Slide. Swords Dance and Rock Slide is going to have stab, going to have a lot of damage, and this is why you're going to run a careful nature. So you can do the same thing with Stockpile here, you can do the same thing with Barrier here, and it's just going to be your personal preference, but some are faster than others. Barrier is really going to amp up that defense. Stockpile is going to make you good at both, and it's just interesting the way the defenses and stat boosts work. That after 2 stages of stat boost, you're effectively doubling that stat. So Barrier is going to double on the first turn, and Stockpile is going to give you 250% boost. But then the next time you use Barrier, it's only going to be 1.5 times more effective. So it's tripling your defenses on the second use, as opposed to doubling your defenses on the second use of Stockpile. So it does scale down. Like the more that you use it, the less effective it becomes. Which is why, you know, sometimes 3 Stockpiles is enough, but other times getting 2 Barriers in 2 turns is more than enough and really helps you secure that KO. Other things Cradily can do that might be surprising is that it has Storm Drain. That it draws in water attacks, has water immunity, and a lot of people will use this to its advantage. That if we pull up Cradily, they're on Storm Drain, people like giving it Giga Drain. That you can have a really impactful tank now. You put it on a rain team, you put it with a Pokemon that doesn't like eating water type, like a Pokemon weak to water type moves, and Storm Drain's going to soak up any single target moves like Scald, not moves like Surf, or if you're using it with a Surf Pokemon, Cradily hits the Surf, gets that boost to special attack, and then it's just going to be really solid from there. You're going to also want to run tanky EVs still, but this time we're going to have to want that Calm nature. That way we're not taking away from any of our special attack. You hit 2 turns worth of Storm Drain, so like you absorb 2 water moves, and you're going to have almost 400 special attack, throwing out Giga Drain for sustain. You also have Recovery, you also have Toxic, so you are providing a lot of disruption as well, while just being a Cradily that supports a water type Pokemon or supports a Pokemon weak against water, and it can work out really well. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's how you use Cradily and Armaldo and Claydol kind of. Welcome back, Wolfpack. This is how to use Heracross. So Heracross has some ridiculous stats that 180